Ah, get away, get away, get away! Well, I have given F.E.A.R. a glowing review, and it's in my roadmap to review F.E.A.R. 2 and 3, so here we go, F.E.A.R. 2. You are thrust into the glasses of Michael Beckett, a quiet, calm Delta Force operator and a pretty badass character, if I do say so. The intro to F.E.A.R. 2 is set roughly 30 minutes before the ending of the first F.E.A.R., which, as we all know, ended with Alma nuking a city. Anyway, the Deltas are sent to arrest Genevieve Aristide. A bit of overkill from the out if you haven't played F.E.A.R. 1, but if you have done so, you'll know that Aristide is the boss of Armacam and the leader of a private fucking army. So, after fighting said private army in Aristide's apartment complex, you get to her and she says something stupid and Beckett has a funny turn, only to witness Alma nuking Fairport City like this was 1945 and Hirohito-sama hasn't rubbed off the red dot on his surrender flag. Wow, that was a weird metaphor. Anyway, I recall Yahtzee's review of F.E.A.R. 2 and him lamenting the fact that super soldier research always ends poorly and beg to differ. You see, it was hinted at in F.E.A.R. 1 that the Point Man was an Armacam experiment and the first psychic commander before Fettel was. As it stands, good old Pointy wasn't big on bending spoons, so they probably booted him out or some shit and he joined the army and F.E.A.R. 1 happens. Fun fact, the events of F.E.A.R. 1 happens less than or close to a week after the Point Man first joined the F.E.A.R. team. I mean, Jesus. I mentioned it was the worst day in the life of a F.E.A.R. operative, but phew, that's some bad luck, mate. So, after failing to produce any more fratricidal and or cannibalistic psychic commanders that can slide around and karate kick in slow-mo, Armacam decided to just steal a Delta Force unit and do that to them, like, you know, that can happen. So, city gets nuked half an hour in, where are you so far? Beckett wakes up in hospital in some spot in full combat gear. Righto. Hospital is a secret Armacam facility deep underground. Anyway, I've heard the devs dumb down the AI for F.E.A.R. 2, and I can see how they'd make that assumption. Some of the enemies I felt were downright lobotomized, and other times I felt like I was playing Rainbow Six Siege. You know that moment where you expose like 4 pixels of your elbow and Jaeger butt-fucks you in the next week? Yeah. But, for the most part, I won't harp on biblical about the AI like I did in the last review. I mean, it's still pretty good. Has its gripes, but that last review was embarrassing. Anyways, the guns are pretty nice, and gone is the aiming system from F.E.A.R. 1, and now it's iron sights all the time. Mostly, at least. There are a few which you can't sight iron on, and I particularly like the combat shotgun. It fired like Satan slamming his... Wait, I've used that analogy already? Shit. Give me a moment.
Medal of Honor, Doorfighter, kicking down doors wherever we go. Medal of Honor, Doorfighter.
The combat shotgun I particularly liked, and it fires like a vengeful lightning bolt from Zeus. Yes, that's right, we have the visceral shotgun blasts from F.E.A.R. 1. Most of the guns handle nicely enough for when you run into the ATC mercs or replica soldiers later on. Yeah, you'll be alright for gunplay. Reflex boosters are back, and boy are they nice to have. I'll cite Yahtzee here when he says how the slow-mo makes every shootout turn into the lobby scene from the first Matrix, and I can half see where he's coming from. I mean, it refilled nicely enough that I could rely on a few extra slow seconds to react to an ambush, or just because I felt like fucking around. One gripe I do have is that they brought back the USP, but they put it on some god-awful fucking attachment mounting thing on it, and I was so triggered by it. Also, what triggers me is the fact that the pistol had been nerfed somewhat, and I found myself switching to the P90 a lot more often, when I typically had the pecking order of shotgun whenever I want fun, pistol as a primary, automatic weapon as a backup. 0 out of 10 Monolith, delete this and start again. In all seriousness, the guns are fun to use, and some have a lot more oomph than the guns in F.E.A.R. 1, and some have less. The P90 hasn't got the punch of the MP5K from F.E.A.R. 1 in my humble opinion, but it more than makes up for it through sheer ammo capacity. Then you have your assault rifles and the like. First one you encounter is, if memory serves, based on the XM8 assault rifle, which I haven't seen in a game since Saints Row 2 and Metal Gear Solid 4. Hashtag bring back the XM8, mate. The story is a direct continuation of the events of F.E.A.R. 1. Sans the 2 X-Packs that were released in what's referred to as the Vivendi timeline, which eternally confounds me. The characters were varied in their approach, and you had some that were really fleshed out and characterised, and you sympathised with them, and others just appear, grab you, shout at you, and then melt. Throughout the second interval, or level, or whatever you want to call it, In the secret underground hospital lab thing, you can find some personnel files on Beckett and the rest of his Delta team. He and one or two others were listed as perfect matches for Project Origin, and you know that sets it up for when Alma starts shitting the fan up. Alma's back on that note, and serves as the primary antagonist, with Aristide and some mustachioed spastic named Vanek serving as the secondary antagonists. All in all, solid shooter. A bit less for wear than the first, and the AI had a few issues like I've mentioned. I'd probably say it's worth a play if you're invested in the F.E.A.R series like I certainly fucking am. If you're not invested in the story or whatever you're like, I'd still say give it a crack. It's a pretty fun shooter. Decent sequel to an otherwise superb game. F.E.A.R 2, Project Origin. I rate it 4 reflex boosters out of 5. I'm Althan, and I'll see you next time.